Be kind. Rewind. This is Dope Nostalgia.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 101. Triple digits. Finally, we've made it. This is Dope Nostalgia, and I'm Naomi, your host. We have a guest today by the name of Frederick Thomas. He's a member of the 1990s pop group Natural Selection. He joins us with a wonderful chat about their history and what's up now. And before we get into that, let's give you a little bit of background on Natural Selection.
Wikipedia moments.
Natural Selection were a pop R&B band from Minneapolis, Minnesota, which was formed by Elliot Erickson and originally included singer Steve Bryans. Frederick Thomas is the one that you're going to know in this track. Together, they recorded a remake of Nick Kershaw's song, Wouldn't It Be Good?, which was picked up independently by Brian Phillips from radio station KDWB, where it generated some buzz around the Minneapolis and Wisconsin radio scene and brought them attention. Steve later left the band and was replaced by Frederick. Natural Selection's song, Do Anything, was written and recorded on a 4-track recorder in Minnesota. The song remained incompleted until Elliot began working on it again in 1989. The rap on the song was originally recorded and improvised by singer Ingrid Chavez, who was a friend of the duo. He's going to tell you all about that and more, of course. But in 1990, the first version of this song, Do Anything, featuring Ingrid's raps, became a local hit on Minnesota radio station WLOL-FM, where Elliot worked as a remix engineer at the time. Once Natural Selection signed a record deal, Ingrid's raps were re-recorded by singer Nikki Harris because Ingrid was under contract with Prince's record label, Paisley Park, at the time. Do Anything became a smash hit and made it to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. The follow-up single from the album, Hearts Don't Think, They Feel, peaked at number 28 on the Billboard Hot 100. And another track from the album, It's Sweet, was released promotionally, but didn't make the charts. In 1992, Frederick and Elliot went their separate ways. Frederick kept the band's name alive informally and added 2 new members, John Swan and Sean Ware. They had a record deal with SBK Records, but when the label fell apart, so did the group. But several years later, Natural Selection reunited and independently made an 8-song record called Infinity. According to research, Frederick Thomas was pursuing a solo career as of 2018, and he's told us so much about what he's been up to. He's one of the most lovely people I've ever had a chance to chat with. So thank you for coming and joining us today. Guys, welcome Frederick to the show. Very nice to meet you, Frederick. And I am very honored to have you on the show. And you had mentioned to me, it's been a while since we've been doing many interviews, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, I haven't done, well, first of all, I haven't probably done any Zoom interviews. I think this is going to be my first, so you're breaking me in
Nice.
with this. Not done any, and as far as interviews in general, it's been quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
These kind of interviews, yeah.
Now, I'd like to give everybody a brief rundown on the band's inception because, I mean, we can always go look up on Wikipedia or whatever. It's easier just to get like a brief rundown from your point of view about how you came together.
Sure, yeah. And a lot of that stuff, I'll say this, Wikipedia, some of that is not, because I've seen some of it and some of it's not exactly accurate. So yeah, at least for us. And then it changes. I see different things up there. I'm like, who's posting this stuff? So
Exactly.
but
Because anyone can edit it.
yeah, that's the thing. I was like, wait, that didn't go down like that.
Right.
So it was 1980, about 88, 89 was when I met Elliot. And I met him through some mutual musician friends, as we like to say. And we used to just get together and jam, and later we'll be able to bring some of these people who you probably have heard of that would later be on in connection with us and work with us and stuff like that. A lot like Ingrid Chavez, people like that. But we all used to jam and record together. And me and him kind of hit it off, and we started doing some things on the side. And I think at the time he was working he was doing remixes, that's what it was, for various radio stations. And I think he'd been involved in radio quite a bit. I think he had taken broadcasting class because I think he was in St. Cloud or Monticello, Minnesota, where I think he had went to college and took that. And he was like on, what do you call it? The universities, the radio station there. I think he worked there because he kind of had that radio voice and we'll be right back. He kind of could do that sort of thing. And but he also was a keyboard piano player, very good, and he liked to write and produce things on the side also. And so we connected and we started working on a couple of different things. And this Do Anything was one of those things that kind of stood out. I just had this bass line that was in my head, and I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of nice. And he goes, yeah, I kind of like that. And he said, I think I could do something with that. And he started building chords around it. And then, so it gets a little convoluted here, because actually when we initially wrote the beginning of the song, or the start to write the song, the beginning of writing the song, I left actually Minneapolis and came back a couple of different times. So that actually Do Anything was originally written probably 1989.
Okay.
And of course it wasn't released till 91. But so in the interim, we were working with other people doing other things, but we'd come back to the song and because we thought we had something. So we come back to the song and rework it and whatever the latest thing that was happening, because you want to try to do what's big. If you're trying to get a record deal, you want to do some things that are contemporary and what's happening on the radio. So we're going to put a rap in it, 8 bars, 16 bars, whatever. It needs this kind of hook. And then you're compressing everything. The 90s was a lot of compression in radio.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of that and just finding the hooks and things to make it come to fruition, which eventually 91 they did. So yeah, go ahead.
I've got to compliment you on that bass line. I absolutely think it's brilliant.
Thanks. Yeah, a lot of my influences. I don't even know what I had in my mind then, but I like to tell people this is so obscure maybe for some people, but there was a song called there's a couple of songs that kind of made me become influenced by that song. So one was do you remember a song called Mr. Big Stuff?
No.
So there's two different versions. So Heavy D did a version he remade, but it's originally by, I can't remember. Maybe it was a woman like Betty Wright or somebody like that.
Okay. But
the bass line from that, and I guess it was that kind of inspired me to kind of come. Oh, and the Cleanup Woman, which is a different bass line, but that particular song kind of put me in the mind frame to write something like that. So
give you that feel.
Right. And I think that song, the people will probably correct us, I think that is by Betty Wright, the Cleanup Woman. You probably heard it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, circa 74, maybe. It's 75, maybe. It's an older one, yeah.
So was this the first song that you and Elliot wrote together? Or
actually, no. We were in a group then called Band Amsterdam. And yes. So you got to imagine, this is like mid to late 80s. And there was a guy named Sparkell Anthony. I still talk to him. I just reconnected with him. And Ermel Andrews, who toured with me in Natural Selection, Elliot, and Ingrid would come in there. Ingrid Chavez would come in there sometimes and with us and do some things. And God, who else was in there? It was kind of a group of people who would sort of a revolving group, if you will. And one of the first songs we wrote were actually me and Sparkell and Ermel are talking about rewriting, because we never got a chance to get it recorded. It's just 4-track stuff, and a lot of people at the time was like, that's a nice song. You guys should put that out. And it's called "Love You Like a Broken Watch."
Ah,
Very, very nice song.
cool.
So that'll be something that we're gonna do. Some of the newer stuff, or re-recording and re-releasing.
Wow.
Yeah, but so I know that what we had a few other songs that we had done. I'm trying to remember the names of some of them specifically. Besides that one. Sacrifice was another one. Elliot played keyboards on that and was very integral part of the production of it. A few more, and they'll come to me as we, maybe later, but yeah, a few others too.
Yeah, I'll definitely have some questions about some of the other tracks that came out on the album. I remember when I first heard the song, I think it was on Open House Party.
Okay.
Do you remember that syndicated radio show?
Vaguely. Was it similar to Casey Kasem's Top 10? Okay, that sounds familiar. I was more familiar with Casey Kasem's, and but yeah, I feel like I have heard of it though.
Yeah, the host's name was at the time was John Garabedian. I do remember that. I don't know if you guys were ever guests on the show, but that's where the song was introduced to me.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the show based? Was it based in LA or New York, or was it Canadian?
It's not Canadian. It was definitely syndicated out of the US.
Okay.
And it would play usually on Saturday nights. But at least like if it's syndicated, it can really create. It could be on at any time. But yeah. So and then the song, for people who didn't know, made it to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
I had to check because that's a Wikipedia thing. So I wanted to make sure.
That is true. That is true. No, that's true. It started out, so the story goes, it started out as a local, or I guess you'd say a local hit in Minneapolis, and Elliot worked at one of the radio stations. WLOL was one in Minneapolis, and they had a competition, which was KDWB. And they had, sister companies in other markets that would, if you got a hit there, they would jump on it. So how we got signed, actually, if you want me to go into that, some of that right now. So yeah, so I got back to Minneapolis and we re-recorded the song, and we added like that break part. We added a bridge, because I don't know if the bridge was there. And then we added some more background vocals. And mind you, all this was done on a 4-track. And and it was, so when we ran out of tracks, and people from, the Generation X and Y will know what this is, but a lot of the younger people might not know it's a 4-track. So then after you ran out of tracks, you would start bouncing tracks to clear tracks up. Yeah. So you would lose a generation. So you'd lose a generation of the sound quality, but you'd have more room to put something else on the track.
Yes.
And so that's what we did. So we had to do that because we loaded a lot of vocals on there. And so some local promotion people, because back then they had so if you had Arista, Atlantic, Warner Brothers, Giant, whoever, they would have local promotion people in various cities. And one of the cities was Minneapolis. I'm sure they had them in Chicago, whatever, Cleveland or wherever else, especially if there was a hot pocket of music starting to take off. And so a few local promotion people one from Arista, one from Atlantic and Warner Brothers, caught wind of it, because they get these, there's it probably does not exist anymore, but there's a weekly periodical called the Monday Morning Quarterback. And it used to give it was mostly for radio industry people. It would give you the countdown of what's being played, the what do you call it? The graphics of what's rising, what's falling. It's kind of like Billboard, but more intense and intricate. The data on that, all that stuff. And so these people that did research and found out that Do Anything was starting to get played a lot, and the local station would do what they call surveys, where they would, and I don't know if they do this in Canada or the radio stations that you were listening to back then, but they would call these people play a bit of the song and say, did you like that? Did you like this? And you could vote on the song that way, or you could request. So our song started getting requested a lot, and it got good good ratings in those surveys. So it started just going. So basically we went from like 38 or something when it first started, and then it started going and going up the charts. And mind you, I had left Minneapolis and came out to where I reside now in the Seattle area. And he called me. He goes, this song's picking up, man. He's like, you might have to come back here and see what's going on, because I'm telling you. And I believed it, but when he said, look, it's playing on the radio, and other people started calling me and telling me, you guys, this song is starting to go up the local chart here. This is crazy. So long story short, some promotion people called the radio station, got in touch with the program director, and they got in touch with Elliot, because he was also a remixer, like I said, on one of those stations. And they were like, oh, you got a good song here. We'd like to talk to you, see what we can do. So he initially met with them, because I was still out, like I said, in Seattle. I'd just become a father, so I was taking care of my son at that time. And so they called him, and he calls me. He said, he said, there's some people here that want to meet with us from Arista, from Atlantic, and Warner Brothers. And he said, he said, this is serious business. He said, they're not just kind of blowing smoke up. They really want to get something going, because they see how well the song is doing. He called me, told me that, and I go, okay, well, just keep me posted. So he met with some of the people from those, at least Arista, that was the other one. And the guy was like, yeah, we'd love to have you guys. Seems like you got a great record here. Now, in the 90s, a lot of people were signing what is known as singles deals. So initially they wanted to sign us for a singles deal to see how it would do, so that they don't, put all their money into something that they felt like might not come to fruition. Excuse me. So they had said, well, let's meet with you guys. We'll have a formal meeting with your partner, and see what's happening, see where you want to go, and see we can crunch some numbers. And, as they say, you can tell us some lies, and we can tell you some lies that record company stuff.
Yeah, right.
So advancing way forward. So I had to go back to Minneapolis, and because Elliot called and told me, he's like, Arista wants to fly us out to New York, because they're serious about signing us at least to a singles deal, with the option to do an album if that record does well. You can get a hit or two out of that, then they will pick you up. And that's because they were doing it. I knew a few people who had been signed to singles deals and kind of turned into an album, which ours eventually would become an album, because the song did so well. Yeah. And so we met with them, fly to New York, meet with them. They met Clive Davis. He liked it. First it was an initial promotion guy there. He was one of the A&R there, and he goes, I'm sure they were trying to get us to sign with them, so they wanted to impress us. Like, I'll blow their mind. I'm going to let them meet Clive, to go. And it was impressive, but I was like, hey, it's Clive Davis and all that, but what else you got, So we met him. He's like, you got a good song here. We really like it. And we hope that you guys are going to sign with us, because we'll get you a singles deal, but I'm pretty sure this thing is going to go up the charts and you guys can get an album out of it. And we were like, great. So they wined and dined us. That was great, because both of us, at least financially, were pretty broke at that time. So it was nice to be flown out to New York and stay at the Empire Hotel right there across Center, all this stuff. Yeah. So they put us up for about a week, wined us and dined us. And then we went back and they said, well, think about it. Let us know what you want to do. in comes Atlantic Records. They say, they said, what's going on? You got any bite on this? We go, yeah, Arista's interested. And they're like, oh, so, and I think a lot of times when one record company knows somebody else is interested, they're like, oh, we got to get, beat them to the punch, whatever. So it was a low level bidding war sort of in the beginning. So Atlantic said, okay, we'll fly you out and we want to meet with you and see what, crunch some numbers, tell some lies, whatever. So we go out there, stay in New York again for about a week. Same thing. They're like, we want you to sign with us and we'll do you one better. We will let you, for the most part, produce yourselves with a co-producer, with somebody, because you've never had a record deal and we don't know what you can do. We don't, so we'll have to get you in the studio, watch you and see how this progresses. But we are willing to say right now, but that we won't be interfering. But whereas Arista right off the jump wanted us to have a producer, and me and Elliot were kind of against it. We weren't totally against it, but we would rather have be more self-contained and self-produced.
Was it a producer of their choosing as well? Like you wouldn't have even had the chance to choose?
More than likely, yes, because they had, I can't remember some of the people they mentioned, but yes, I think it would have been that situation. Mm-hmm. But they said, you can throw us some names out. And a lot of the people that I thought about even at that time were way too expensive for us at that time as a fledgling group. Like, this is the days of Teddy Riley, the New Jack Swing type stuff, or that Spider-Man guy. Who else? But yeah, I mean, there was a few others, but they were like, well, no, we're thinking some other people. So that guy's too expensive right now. So we went back to Atlantic, and they were like, well, we'll let you do it. We'll have to get some type of co-producers in there with you to watch you. So we're leaning toward them at this point. Then Warner Brothers, we get back to Minneapolis because that's over. So we get time to sort of think about it, think about what we want to do. Although we are leaning towards Atlantic. And Warner Brothers goes, oh, well, we want some of this. We'll give you a deal too, a singles deal. But they said, we want to hear some more music. You see what else you got. So Elliot and I don't know what song we gave him. We gave him two other songs. One of the other songs was Hearts Don't Think They Feel, which would later become the second single released. And they were like, oh, okay, that's cool too. What else? So they kind of wanted us to keep recording. And we were like, okay, these people are already offering us a deal. They want us to keep going. And we don't really, unless they're going to pay for this.
Yeah.
Then, well, because they, we're doing this stuff on 4-track and on spec and, all this stuff. So it's like, well, unless you're going to pay for it. And they had said that they would, but they were just moving too slow. So we eventually decided to go with Atlantic. And so we went with Atlantic, which later became, so many names: Atco East West, East West, Atlantic Electra. So it became all these things. But when our actual contract said Atlantic, but if you look at our CD, I think on the back it says Atlantic, Atco East West. Which, I mean, it's all Atlantic at that point, at that time.
These are like subsidiaries kind of thing?
Yes.
Like it just changes names? Yeah.
Yes. Or somebody will gobble them up and they'll say, well, this is a boutique of, like now I think We is probably most of it now, which is Warner, Electra, whatever. Yeah. So basically, they were boutique. Like a new shoot off that Sylvia Rhone was head of.
So once the song is already charting before you're even signed, right? Before you're even signed, once you get that record deal, it gives you the opportunity to make the album, and they pay for like the touring and all that, right? Did you get the chance to go on tour?
We did. Yes, we did. It was, it must have been like maybe 40, 50 cities. So it wasn't a major tour. And so back then, there were a lot of quick shows like that were sponsored by radio stations. So they almost call them like track dates. So to save money, you would not bring a whole band. You would still have to play, but you would play to your track. So I was singing and Elliot was playing keyboards. And if we got any other instrumentalists or any other background singers, you did that. But it was just a way to save money until you could get a band and get your own van. Because a lot of those dates we were flying around, which would get a little expensive. And some were on a bus, but a lot of them were flights. And I've been binge watching a couple of your episodes. And yeah, nice show, by the way. I'm loving it. Yeah. I just got through listening to you did the Martin Page, that one. But one that really hit home with me was the Tara Kemp one. Yeah. And it was somebody else because actually we did about 3 or 4 shows with her. Now, I don't know if she would remember, but our first show, speaking of touring, our first show in Oklahoma City at the Oklahoma State Fair was with Tara Kemp.
She's lovely.
That was probably 19. Yes. And it was somebody else there, like maybe Tracy Spencer at the time, I think had it, because we did a few shows with her too. I think that was a smaller one, but it was like 3 or 4 groups, a handful, and she was on the bill. And I think us, Tracy Spencer, and somebody else. Yeah. But there's a few people that I've heard you talk to, and I'm like, oh, I did a show with them too. I did a show with those guys too. So yeah.
It's true. It's no, she was telling me a lot of that happened. She had done a lot of dates because she was signed under Giant, right?
Okay, yeah.
So she had done a lot of dates with like Color Me Bad, who was also on the same label, and she told me a lot about those situations, how they put them together.
We did a lot of shows with them too. Color Me Bad. I know we did, which was kind of a highlight when we played that UK award show, Top of the Pops. We did that. They were there. They played there. And, back in that particular part of the 90s, radio it was a very weird thing. I don't know if you remember. So you would start seeing, you still had your rock, urban, or whatever these categories are, but music was kind of meshing and blending together. So you had a lot of these shows where we did a show with that particular one in the Top of the Pops with Naughty by Nature.
Nice.
Because they had OPP at the time. Salt and Pepper, Kid and Play. Kathy Dennis was at that show.
Sweet.
Color Me Bad, and Extreme, I think, was at that. I don't know if you remember the pop rock group.
Oh, I love Extreme. I love that band.
Yes, they were. They played at that award show too. Yeah. Yeah.
What a good, and that's a huge mix of different types of artists.
That's what I was saying.
That's pretty
had
cool.
all these, a lot of different styles of things going on. Yeah.
What do you think was one of the most memorable of the performances that you did?
Wow. Well, that one was one of them. Also, when we played in Honolulu, we played Hawaii. That was nice. We did 2 shows there. One at a big indoor auditorium, and then the next day we did an outdoor venue, which it was nice. Being in Hawaii was nice, and it was my birthday too around that time when we did those shows. Those were nice, and I think at that particular show, Gerardo was there. He played.
Cool.
We went and did sound check together. I think Tony Terry was at that show too, because I think he had a single out that was going up the charts. And maybe Maya the Cat.
She has to make an appearance in every episode, I swear.
Right. Who else? Yeah, so that was one, Hawaii, and what else? Oh, we did one in Universal Studios in Orlando. That was a nice show. That kind of stood out too.
Wow.
Very nice show. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, when we start talking about what's coming up. Before we do that, I did want to ask a little bit about the female vocalist on Do Anything, because when I first heard the song, I'm like, as a teenager, I thought, that sounds like Madonna. And then I'm sure you heard that a million times. And then I was hearing it was Ingrid Chavez, and I was hearing it was Nikki Harris, which would make sense with the Madonna comparison. But what happened with the female vocal on the track?
So here we go. So another convoluted story. So in the beginning, when I was telling you about, we got back together and started to remix the track and put some things to it. We had the idea. He's like, we need one more thing to make this really just in your face. And he's like, what if we got a female singer to sing on it? I was like, well, maybe even beyond that. Let's get beyond that. Let's get a female person to sort of talk on it, and let's put it in that telephone, because the lyric, you know, that I say in there, and it's the first verse. He's like, let's actually, you know, take that even further. So then we said, well, who can we use? And I, you know, like I said, I had known Ingrid. We all used to live in the same area in South Minneapolis. And I was like, well, I know somebody that would be able to probably do it pretty well. So we let her hear it and asked her if it was something that she'd be interested in doing. And at the time, she was, I don't know if she was signed yet, but she was about to be. I think maybe she was signed actually to Prince's label, to Paisley Park. And she was just doing, God, so many, I got to stay focused. There's so many things I want to go into, so many tributaries of things that I could tell you. So she said, yeah, I like the song. I'll do what I can, you know, whatever. So we even let her co-write some lines in there, and some of them we made up, and she made up some of her own. So she was on Paisley Park at the time, and well, we weren't even thinking, we didn't know it would be a conflict of interest or, you know, whatever with the label. We weren't even thinking that far ahead, because we didn't know. And I don't think she was either. I think she thought it was like, oh, this is cute. This is something that'll, you know, we'll see. Because it hadn't gone national yet. It was still local, but it was bubbling. And so she did it, and we recorded, sent it back to them, and they were like, oh my God, this is great, the way you guys put that in there. This is, and then some of the people who didn't know who she was, and people that did know, they were like, oh, this will even be better for promotion, because you're in Minneapolis. She was in Graffiti Bridge too, the other Prince movie. And so this will be another way for us to promote this and get that whole, is this a Prince protege project? Did he have anything to do with this? That whole thing. So
Mystery.
It's only going to work in your favor.
Yeah.
So that was just an added plus, that we just happened to know her way before she got signed to Prince and all that stuff and got big or whatever. So she was the original person on the local version. So months down the line, the song's blowing up. Then we get the deal with Atlantic. We sign whatever. They say, yeah, we like it. We're going to go ahead and give you an album. So it's in, I think the first time let me see. So the record company people said, oh, we have an issue here, because she's signed to Paisley Park Records, which is, you know, Warner Brothers. It's not Atlantic. It's a whole different thing. So we might have an issue with that. And so one of the A&R people told us, and some lawyers too, they said, well, maybe you guys should just to be safe, get somebody else to do that part. You can still give her writer's credit or whatever for doing it and put her name on it, but we think you should get somebody else just to be safe. We were going to keep her. We were like, we think she should. You didn't know about that kind of stuff, the legalities and all that stuff. But so they won that one. They're like, no, we're going to switch. It's just to be safe, because this was in the era of a lot of people getting sued. The sampling thing was off the hook and all that stuff. Like, no, we don't want any litigation. So we said, okay, well, who are we going to get to do it now? So we tried a few people in the local area, and it just didn't sound the same. It didn't mesh. It was not it just wasn't there. And so Brian Malouf, who's this engineer out in LA, they talked to him. They said, well, do you know anybody? We need to get somebody to do this song. He was already remixing our song, putting it on 48 tracks. So it taking it from that the 4-track and putting it, kind of trying to make it sound a little bit better and bigger. And he said, oh, actually, yeah, I think I know somebody that would be great for this. He goes, you guys know who Nikki Harris is? And I go, yeah. I said, isn't that the woman that sings background for Madonna? They're like, yeah. He goes, I know her. I said, I think I could get her to do this. She's, she doesn't have to write anything. You just want her to do these exact parts, right? Or whoever it's going to be. I was like, yeah, we're not going to add, because they like all the lines are fine. We just need somebody else to do it. And he's like, well, let me ask her. So he asked her. She said, yeah. We paid her like a flat fee to do that. And she did it. And that's when they were like, okay, we're fine. Now we'll go ahead and release this and put it out. So there are versions, and I have a few of the original with Ingrid on it. And I think I saw one somebody uploaded to YouTube, the original. It's a little faster and it's a little bit more raw because you can tell it's still 4-track-ish, but I think it's up. But so that's how that kind of became Nikki Harris as the background singer and speaker on that song.
Wow. Do you think
but it was originally Ingrid. Yeah.
Do you think there's any legality problems now to play a clip of the Ingrid version on the show?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. Because I kind of want to play it like a little of both so that people can hear the difference, Okay, here's a clip of the version with Ingrid Chavez, the original. So it sounds slightly different from the actual single release version, which is the one with Nikki Harris. Check this out. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
now here we are. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, but 30 years ago this month since it came out, right?
Yes.
The album itself? The album itself?
Yes. The album itself was November 15th, so it's coming up. Yes.
Wow. What was the delay that nothing has come out since?
Oh, wow. So life happens.
Yeah.
You get married, have kids, or in my case, more kids. I have two younger daughters now also. But actually we did re-release, not re-release, we did do a sophomore effort, but that was independent. So we were not signed because actually, so 93, I think, is when they were like, well, we're not going to exercise the option to do another album with you guys. And a lot of it was because me and Elliot were kind of in different places. He mostly wanted to do production. He didn't mind performing. I think eventually he started to like going on the road, because it can be hard being on the road. As nice as it sounds, it's and I didn't mind that as much, and I didn't mind being out there and doing production and doing the performance stuff. And so anyway, sorry, I digress. So there was a second independent release titled Infinity, and it was like an EP, though. It was a 6-song EP, and this was 96, 7. And even before that, I put together a group called SLM, Soul Liberation Movement, and we were almost signed. And I'm gonna get you all these songs so you can check them out. We were almost signed to SBK, but that thing fell through for various reasons. But we went out to New York and met with some people, and it just didn't happen at the time. And then after that, that's when we got back together in Minneapolis under Natural Selection. Minus Elliot, there was some new players, some great musicians. Sean Ware is one, John Swan. We were kind of the core of it. And then we had Keith Brown on bass, Daniel Knight on drums. I just want to mention these guys. And that was kind of the core of it then. And we put out that EP and did some local shows. We probably could have toured a little bit more, at least in that region. And we just, things happen. We're a little older at that point. So people are, gotten day jobs. And like I said, a few of us had kids. So it's so hard to get people together. So
the struggle's real. Yeah. Once you have families and stuff, and you're dealing with more than like yourself, you have to get all the other people in the band together. I get it. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to get this prism coming in here, the sun.
Oh, it's kind of glorious. It's like,
I'll let it
out your window. It's good.
Okay. So so that was called Infinity. That was a 6-song EP, and then kind of broke up again, went our separate ways. Then sort of I did a solo record, which I think is how you located me, because I got the email from you on my Frederick O'Neill Thomas page.
Sure did.
So that was that. And that was that was a solo album that was put out in originally 2009. And now I just, it feels like the right time to do this. And I see a lot of my contemporaries at that particular time that are touring still. And a friend of mine, he's telling me, man, you have something that you could do. You just need to get out there, put it together, and just, because he said, look at all these other people that you mentioned in these names. These people are on these I Love the 90s tours and doing their thing. I mean, in spite of pandemic and all that stuff, I mean, they're making whatever you have to do to go to shows or whatever, but it's like these people are still doing shows. And I was like, oh, wow, yeah, not, and I've always wanted to, but like I said, having the kids here too, trying to set time aside to write and do all that stuff and then rehearse on top of it and put a bio together and all that stuff. So I have, his name is Donnie Davis. So he's been helping me a lot and kind of inspiring me to get a move on. And that's been kind of the catalyst as of late to put it back together. Find Elliot even. And do some we have some plans to do some shows this spring and summer.
Wonderful.
And so after we on the basis or to promote some of this unreleased material that we have and some new material too, but a lot of this stuff very few people have heard, maybe a few locally, but it's basically the musicians that played on it and a few of their friends. Other than that,
Well, the reunion of Natural Selection is something really exciting, but I'm even more happy to know that during the last 30 years, you have maintained being musically active and recording and releasing. So I'm really happy to hear that. And I want to play a solo track for you too.
Yeah. No, that's nice. I'll say this. I did a little research on you yourself. You are a very good singer. You have a very good voice.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I heard some of, weren't you, I don't know if you guys are still together. What was Six Strings Loaded, right?
Yeah, Six String Loaded. Yeah, that was my band for 10 years.
Right. I went back and listened to that stuff. A very strong voice. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, you've blown my mind here. I didn't see that coming.
Well, I'm a musician, so I'm going to do research and listen to stuff and go. I'm always listening. I like all kinds of music. So, So
thanks for checking it out. Yeah, I'm proud of the work and the writing, and but that's where when we're talking about that's why when I said trying to keep a band together, when everyone has their own, they've got their families, their children, their other things going on. It's not an easy task.
Right. It is not. No. Very. Yeah.
I felt that.
It's hard to put your all into it. And I think in the past I've been like, I got to a point where I went, well, if I'm only going to do it half-assed, I just don't want to do it. I'll just play my guitar and piano for the kids and do a show here and there. Because we had a residency here in the Seattle area. At a restaurant, and I was like, this is cool for now, but then you see, you're like, okay, I gotta expand my operations. So yeah.
what would be, when you're thinking back to the last 30 years of music that you've put out, what's a song that's endearing and special to you that you wish would have been a single or a release?
Oh
I
God,
I want to play it.
Oh, cool. Well, there were a few of those on the first Natural Selection album for sure, because we only, after Hearts, we released one more single, which was It's Sweet, which didn't do as well. I don't think it cracked as far as chart wise. It was a good song, but it didn't chart really. I think it might have 88. It was way down there, whereas the other two were in the top 40. But having to sort of fight with the record company on which songs to produce or which songs to release and which songs are singles, I look back and I go, I think this song would have did so well. And who knows, maybe it wouldn't have, but there was a song called Bum Rush Your Heart. And it was a sort of like it was a new jack swing type. It would remind you of that song Poison by Belle Biv DeVoe. I don't know if you remember that song. It was kind of that kind of song, had that kind of feel to it, very sparse. There was only a bass, drums, a little bit of guitar, vocals, few keyboard lines, very sparse though. But that would have been nice to have had that out and been, because we performed it live. We just did a raw version. One of the guys, Jason, one of the guys was in the group, Jason Williams. He would do a beatbox, so we do it very raw.
Yeah.
Beatbox, me singing, Elliot playing keyboards. Yeah. But that one, that was on that record. Probably Let's Get It Together was another song on that album that I would have liked to maybe have been released and to see what would have happened. As far as my solo record, probably a song called Do What You Do and have more of a reggae feel. That's on that Frederick O'Neal Thomas album, that song, because I think it had a lot of potential crossover, whatever you want to call that, or, just some mass appeal, I'll say it. That term crossover kind of, yeah. But yeah.
If there's one thing I really miss about the 90s, it's New Jack Swing.
Yeah.
That was like probably my favorite sound of all.
Me too.
Genres.
Me too, especially that early period. And there's a few stations, and obviously if you have XM satellite or whatever, you can get these stations that play that particular style. But there's a DJ I heard in Minneapolis at some station that plays a lot of that on a Friday or Thursday, nothing but New Jack Swing. So all the Guy stuff, the Teddy Riley stuff, the Belle Biv DeVoe, all those groups that kind Some of that Heavy D and the Boys stuff. Some of that was New Jack. So
Yeah, even Michael and Janet were even doing New Jack. So
yes,
yeah,
that's right. That's right. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
true.
Teddy. Yeah.
So what do you think the listeners can look forward to with what's coming up? What are the goals? What do you have to share so that we can pay attention
So
and get involved?
yeah. So like I said, we have some live performances coming up in spring and the summer. We're going to put the band together, and that's going to be the fun part, because it's always great playing live for people. And some of this unreleased material that some Frederick O'Neill Thomas, some solo stuff, and some mostly natural selection stuff, actually. And some of these songs I wrote and co-produced when there was a brief period when I went back out to New York and I worked with a producer. I don't mean to be long-winded, but there's so much going on in my head right now.
I love it. I love listening to everything you have to say. It's wonderful.
Okay. So I went out there and worked with a producer. His name was Keith Diamond. Now, he was popular for, he co-wrote and produced Billy Ocean, the Caribbean Queen album. I don't know if you remember that. So Caribbean Queen.
Yep.
All those songs that were on that, Suddenly was on there. He did that also. And what was the other song? I don't know. Those were the main two. And so I worked with him, and that's when I was working with Donnie Davis out in New York. And we had some great material, and some of that we're going to release and put that out and let the people hear some of that. Some great stuff. It's more along the line. Sorry, that sun is doing
The sun's
its thing
chasing
here.
you.
Yeah. It's like, some of the, let's see if I do this. Okay. Some of the, bad background. Okay, we'll go back to the sun. Back to the prism. What was I saying? So yeah, we're gonna release some of that material that I did in New York with Donnie and Keith, and Jim's in there. Some nice stuff. And I'll be posting things. We're gonna slowly put things up and let you see what we're doing.
Good.
And I was one other thing, just real quick. You did an interview with Kim Sims, right? Yes. That was a good interview. I like that. She had mentioned some of the same people we toured with, that she had toured with. And she had said one of the highlights of her, this is so bad. It's one of the,
Oh, you got it.
Is that good? Oh my God. Anyway, so some of the highlights of her career was when she did Downtown Julie Brown. We also did that, and that was great doing it. Now you lip sync your song because they just don't do live performances in there. But that was nice to meet her and do that show and have that air. That's on YouTube too. That's up. Okay. Somebody uploaded it also. Yeah, our performance on there. And I think because they do a bunch of those recordings in one day. We're going to go ahead and do this.
Oh, look, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, so they do a bunch of those recordings and the tapings in one day. And I know Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch was there, and we did a bunch of shows with them. PM Dawn was there, did a bunch of shows with those guys. Remember those guys too?
Yes.
Yeah. And did a great show with a lot of those groups. So that's another one. They're coming to me now as we're probably closing. But on Buffalo, New York, we did a very good show there. It was kind of memorable. Do you think you'd consider participating in one of the nostalgia tours, the big tours that are going on now? Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I said we're trying to. Yeah. We were trying to get on one of those 90s tours. I had a guy talking to some of the promoters, but then they shut everything down. This was 2020. And they were like, well, we'll resume. I think it's back up and running now, but they canceled a bunch of the dates for it. Yeah. So no, I would absolutely be interested in doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, they
And if
had
you,
one this summer here. Oh, well, in Calgary. It went from like
oh,
Toronto, Calgary, probably Vancouver. But it was very
sure.
Euro dance orientated. So you had like Two
Oh,
Unlimited and Wigfield and Aqua. So there was one that was done by Much Music hosts, and
mhm.
so it's starting up again. It's going.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. Yes. I saw you also saw your interview with Ray from on Two Unlimited.
oh yeah, he's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Girl, you got me singing. Oh, you got me singing. Back in the fall, you were my all, my heart and my soul. Oh, then came the winter. You were the fire when nights were cold. April brought showers and lonely hours between me and you. Something went wrong. Girl, won't you tell me, what can we do? Our summer's gone, and the love we shared, it came undone. Now our summer's gone.
So it's good that like these tours are happening again, and hopefully you get to come to Canada because we'd love to see you.
That would be great. You know, our song did so well in Canada.
Mhm.
We would look at that Monday Morning Quarterback and those other radio periodicals or whatever, and
Mhm.
it was always doing very well in Canada. So yeah, for sure. And even when I get my royalty checks, which are not as much as it used to be, they'll tell you where a lot of them from, and a lot of it, Canada is a lot of the times the highest on there, and Australia too, which
Nice.
is very strange, but Canada's usually up there too. So
That's
yeah,
wonderful. I'm proud.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So as we wrap things up, one
yeah.
question I ask everybody at the end is usually if you can think of a food, a toy, clothing item, clothing brand, what makes you nostalgic for the 90s of any
Oh
of these
God.
things?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I tell you what, shoes
Mm,
bring me back. Just because I remember at the time, everybody and I, I kind of that was one of my things. The sneakers. I just, oh God, from
yeah.
shell toe Adidas, Timberlands, what at the time, we had Doc Martens. I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know if you remember those thick shoes with the pad leather
Yeah.
on the top. Remember we were all wearing. So yeah, that's kind of makes me think about that. Yeah,
Did you have a
yeah.
favorite pair? Like a favorite brand?
I probably I liked Kids a lot. We had remember some of those skateboard type shoes. Remember all that stuff was Stussy and all that was very
Yeah.
popular at the time. Um, yeah, I used to really rock the Timberlands quite a bit.
Sweet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I've had such a
Yeah.
good time talking to you and learning so much about you and natural selection. So I really want to thank you for taking the time. And we can also continue. Like I'll always do news breaks throughout
Yeah.
future episodes. So as soon as you've got something new happening and it's out on your social media, I'll plug it on the show.
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would like that. Yeah.
So that way we keep in touch with what you're doing. I love that
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Yeah. Can I tell you one little story before we go?
Of course. Yes.
Okay, so here, because one of my friends, he said you should tell that story. So this will go back to it's a Prince story. So
Okay.
that's kind of why I want to tell it. Obviously, you can tell he was a major influence on me Just by listening. If you listen to the song, and all my friends in high school know it for sure. And when I got to Minneapolis, people, they just know. Him and Rick James were two of the people that inspired me the most when I wanted to when I jumped deep into full on music instead of wanting to be an athlete or all that. I'm like, okay, I'm only going to be like 5'9" and like $142 soaking wet. So these musicians, you can do this a long time, not have to worry about all these injuries that you might, procure or whatever. So going back to the Ingrid part. So Ingrid came to us, she goes, Prince told me, he said that there's a song that's out and everybody thinks it's him, because a lot of people thought it was him. A lot of the musicians kind of could distinguish it, but most people thought it was him. And in that area, it's from Minneapolis. It's almost everything was just set in motion just that way, or they thought he had something to do with it. So she said he asked her to and this is after she had recorded her part. We had a mutual friend and she called her, and then that friend called me and said, oh yeah. And then she goes, well, Elliot, you guys, can I get a copy of the song? Prince wants to hear it, because he hadn't heard it. He's probably touring or whatever. And I don't know how much he probably listened to local pop radio, probably not that much, but everybody's telling him there's a song. And he's like, I don't have that's not out yet. Cause this would have been the time he had Diamonds and Pearls out. I think that was, he had out. So Get Off and all that stuff was out. I think at that
Get
time.
Off is like probably
Prince.
one of my favorite Prince songs. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Just a side note.
Okay. So that was out. And a few other, Cream was out too. So that was out at the same time. That was on the charts at the same time. And so she said, I want to get a copy. If you guys can run me a copy, I can take it out there to him and let him check us out. And we were like, oh, cool. Maybe something will evolve from this or whatever. But although we were already ready to sign with Atlantic, we just thought it'd be cool to do. So we give her a copy. She takes it out there to him. Now I wasn't there, and I've met him before, but I met him during when I didn't even have a deal. This was probably 1986. He was just hanging out at First Avenue, went up to him and shook his hand and said, Prince, he's like, what's up? And I said, hey, what's up? I liked your movie. This Graffiti Bridge was out at the time. And I just walked away because me and my friends were like, I don't want to be like I'm some groupie jocking him, but I was like, if he only knew how much he really influenced me, got pictures of him on the wall and stuff. Yeah. But so back to the story. So so she took him a copy. Now she came back and reported that he said this. So I mean, he probably did say this. So she said he listened to the song, and he said, well, this doesn't sound anything like me. It's okay for a pop song, but it's a total ripoff of Tell Me Something Good by Rufus Chaka Khan. Oh. And I
no.
And funny, the songs are very similar. Now, we didn't rip that song, but we probably were unconsciously definitely influenced by that song. Great song. Stevie Wonder wrote it for Rufus Chaka Khan. Great song. And if you sing the choruses, they are very similar. But I wasn't even mad about that. I thought that was the ultimate compliment to me when she said I was like, oh, wow, this musician actually gets it. He can hear what's going on. So I always liked that was one of my highlights of a Prince story that I have. So, yeah.
That's the thing. When you read between the lines of what he's trying to say is he gets what's going on. And I love that.
Right.
Like, where the influences were and everything.
Right.
It was so worth it. And good to get to know you. Thank you, Frederick. It was a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you, Naomi.
Okay, we'll keep in touch.
Will do.
Now listen to me, girl, yeah. the morning sun. When the morning comes, you know where I'll be, right by your side.
Hey kids, put down that Tamagotchi and listen for a second. You know, you can follow us on Twitter at NostalgiaDope, Instagram at dope_nostalgia. Visit our website at www.dopenostalgia.com or pick up the phone and call us at 780-851-8785.
This podcast is licensed by SOCAN because we believe that artists should be paid for their work.